All right, what are you Turks? Oh, God, I'm in a good mood, man. I'm coming to your house. We got a lot of fun topics today. There's some chance that I will go to war. Over what? I don't know, but I'm coming. Okay, here's some fun topics for you guys. One, a couple of African-American libs go to war against one another. President Obama caught in the middle. It's fascinating. I will weigh in. Apparently, JR is looking to weigh in on that. You got your thoughts ready? All right, okay. He's been psyched up all day about it. Okay, so we will pick sides. We will determine winners. That's what we do on TYT. Furthermore, Gingrich, further embarrassments. Oh, that's embarrassing. That's embarrassing. What are you doing, Gingrich? And Bill O'Reilly, speaking of embarrassing, his excuse for... I got to say that story. You got to see the Bill O'Reilly versus Jon Stewart story. It's not the debate. We already did the debate. It's who won. You're going to love that story. Okay, but first, everybody be cool, okay? Everybody be cool because we got a serious story. You put your game face on. It's about Israel and Palestine. So, President Obama today gave a speech on the Middle East. First, he started out with some things that are fairly uncontroversial. Of course, Republicans will hate it anyway. He said that people like Bahrain, who are our allies, should be a little better towards the democracy protesters. Now, that doesn't mean much. We're not really going to take any action. But he's saying, hey, stop cracking down on them. Good, fine, okay. It's not enough, but it's all right. But much more importantly, what I thought was the best part of the speech, he said we basically need a Marshall Plan for the Middle East to encourage the countries that went in the right direction. So Egypt and Tunisia basically became democracies, we hope. And he's saying we're going to forgive $1 billion of loans for Egypt, and we are also going to give $1 billion extra to create business opportunities, et cetera, there. Also help Tunisia because you want to do carrots and sticks, right? Obviously, Libya is feeling the heat of the stick right now. Gaddafi is at least. And Egypt and Tunisia should get the carrots for going in the right direction. That's very smart. That's exactly right. Of course, some Republicans have complained already saying, how dare you? Based on what? I don't even know. I tried to decipher what they were angry about. No one could make any sense of it. Now, to be fair, some of the Republicans did support him. Lindsey Graham, for example, came out and said, look, people up in South Carolina are going to beat me up over this. You know, we're broke and we got a deficit problem and we're spending money on Egypt. But I got to back the president on this one. I think it's important, has worldwide ramifications, and I think he's going in the right direction there. So, hey, all the credit in the world to Lindsey Graham on that one. Now, on another issue today, I'm going to give him all the discredit in the world, but fair is fair. So, mainly split, the Republicans are on that, but it's so obvious, I think, that's going to die down. The second reason it's going to die down is because of the second part of the speech, which the Republicans hated a million times more. So, the critical part of Obama's speech today on the Middle East was on Israel and Palestine. Interesting. So he had some strong words for the Palestinians, he had some strong words for the Israelis, and everybody got mad. But I think, it's headed in the right direction, but there are parts of it I definitely disagree with. In fact, let's start what he said to the Palestinians. Clip number 1.
For the Palestinians, efforts to delegitimize Israel will end in failure. Symbolic actions to isolate Israel at the United Nations in September won't create an independent state. Palestinian leaders will not achieve peace or prosperity if Hamas insists on a path of terror and rejection. And Palestinians will never realize their independence by denying the right of Israel to exist.
All right, 2 points there. First of all, I love what the Palestinians are doing at the United Nations. Israel got the ability to exist because they went to the United Nations and said, we'd like a state, and the United Nations gave it to them. Why shouldn't the Palestinians do the same exact thing? It is nonviolent. They have no reason to complain, the Israelis or the U.S., about what the Palestinians are doing. Some are calling it civil disobedience, but as Martin Luther King said in the middle of his civil disobedience, he actually had the law behind him. He was right. It's just that the states down in the South were not abiding by federal law. And he said, look, I'll go to jail for it, but I'm on the right side here. And the Palestinians are on the right side by saying, hey, we are rejecting violence and we are going to the United Nations to exercise our rights. Of course, we should have a state like anyone else did, and as you gave it to Israel. So President Obama there is just, giving something to the Israeli right-wing government, like, hey, will that appease you? since we'll block the legitimate concerns of the Palestinian people. So U.S. has been trying to block that all along. Now, the great thing about that is that it does not go to the Security Council, so the U.S. cannot veto it. It goes to the General Assembly, and so the Palestinians might simply succeed there. They're doing that in September. Godspeed to them. The second part is the constant complaining that the Palestinians have not agreed that Israel has the right to exist. First, should Israel have the right to exist? Of course they have the right to exist. They already exist, okay? Second of all, will the Palestinians agree to that? Of course they will. Even Hamas has said on several occasions, through conduits and sometimes directly, obviously at the end of negotiations, we're going to give them the right to exist, or they already have the right to exist. We will acknowledge it because it's the most obvious thing in the world, right? They're just holding on to it as some sort of negotiation ploy, which, by the way, I think is a dumb negotiation ploy. They should just simply come out and go, yeah, of course Israel has the right to exist. Now let's move on, right? But the thing that drives me crazy about it is not that. It is the awesome irony of that statement. The government of Israel will not allow the Palestinian state to exist, and then they complain that Hamas will not recognize their right to exist when they already exist. No, and what Israel is doing is not rhetorical, it is not philosophical, it is not ideological, it is real, it is practical. They are actually preventing the Palestinian state from existing. So please spare me that argument. So, did I agree with the president on this stuff? No. Okay. Now, when he got to Israel, interesting. And I thought very uncontroversial. The Republicans apparently disagreed. Let's take a look at the first part of it.
As for Israel, our friendship is rooted deeply in a shared history and shared values. Our commitment to Israel's security is unshakable, and we will stand against attempts to single it out for criticism in international forums. But precisely because of our friendship, it's important that we tell the truth. The status quo is unsustainable, and Israel too must act boldly to advance a lasting peace. The fact is, a growing number of Palestinians live west of the Jordan River. Technology will make it harder for Israel to defend itself. A region undergoing profound change will lead to populism in which millions of people, not just one or two leaders, must believe peace is possible. The international community is tired of an endless process that never produces an outcome. The dream of a Jewish and democratic state cannot be fulfilled with permanent occupation.
Again, incredibly obvious. You can't have a permanent occupation. Now the right wing has gone ballistic over this. Well, I don't understand. What do you want? You want an occupation that lasts forever? You want to be the brutal oppressors forever? Because if you say, hey, look, we're working towards peace, it's just taking some time and we need some security issues cleared up, you say, all right, well, then you're not really an oppressor. That's the argument, right? That you're going to get to that peaceful resolution at some point. If you say, no, the occupation should be permanent, well, then there's no argument. Then you are in the wrong 1,000,000%. You are the oppressor. You are the one who keeps millions of people enslaved in a state that is not theirs. That is brutal, and you do it through a force of arms. So what is there to complain about? That's insanity to complain about that statement. But they had a second bone to pick with him. It had to do with the borders. Let's watch that portion of the clip.
What America and the international community can do is to state frankly what everyone knows. A lasting peace will involve two states for two peoples. Israel as a Jewish state and the homeland for the Jewish people, and the state of Palestine as the homeland for the Palestinian people, each state enjoying self-determination, mutual recognition, and peace. So while the core issues of the conflict must be negotiated, the basis of those negotiations is clear: a viable Palestine, a secure Israel. The United States believes that negotiations should result in two states with permanent Palestinian borders with Israel, Jordan, and Egypt, and permanent Israeli borders with Palestine. We believe the borders of Israel and Palestine should be based on the 1967 lines with mutually agreed swaps, so that secure and recognized borders are established for both states. The Palestinian people must have the right to govern themselves and reach their full potential in a sovereign and contiguous state. As for security, every state has the right to self-defense, and Israel must be able to defend itself, by itself, against any threat.
Again, as I listen to that, I think, what could possibly be objectionable about that? You should have two independent states, obviously. They should live in peace, obviously. What part are you objecting to? Well, it turns out they're objecting to the 1967 borders. But wait a minute, Hillary Clinton said back in 2009 that they should be within the 1967 borders. That was obvious already. The Bush administration hinted that it should be the 1967 borders, hinted very strongly at times. The entire international community agrees it should be the 1967 borders. Even Israel in negotiations in the past has agreed it should be the 1967 borders. And by the way, with adjustments. You know that, when he said that there should be some adjustments, he meant that the Israelis will actually keep a great majority of their settlements in the West Bank, which is outrageous to some Palestinians. It's outrageous to many people across the world, but Israel will get to keep those anyway. And in exchange, there'll be some land swap to connect the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Now, is that a fair exchange? It might not be, but I'll take the deal. Look, we got to have peace. We've got to have it. So, to me, this was the most obvious thing in the world. He's trying to bring the Palestinians back to the table, and of course, Netanyahu outraged by it. The Israeli Prime Minister says that he can't believe that President Obama gave the speech, and he should, make clear that what President Bush once said in 2004 is the way to go, which is that, we will back Israel unilaterally, and we will not get into border disputes or anything like that. Whatever Israel says, we will do. Shocking that the Israeli Prime Minister would want that. Look, are there obstacles to peace on the Palestinian side? Of course there are, right? That's just the nature of a society that has many different opinions and many different actions, some good, some bad, right? Same is true in Israel, right? But unfortunately, it is clear that the Israeli leadership has no interest in this process. That's why George Mitchell, the guy who was assigned by Obama to make peace over the last 2 years, just quit. Because the Israelis will not come to the table. They come up with one excuse after another. And it doesn't help Israel. It hurts Israel. Look, President Obama's right. You can't keep up with what's going on in the world. Technology has changed. Everything has changed. You've got to have the peace. That's the way to actually make sure that Israel is secure. But in their right-wing government, in their eternal arrogance, says no, 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 over and over again. So what are the two remaining issues, by the way? One is who's going to get to keep Jerusalem, and the other is the right of return for the Palestinian refugees. Look, I've known this answer for at least 15 years. Everybody I've ever had on this show knows the answer. The Arab League knows the answer. The Israelis know the answer. The Americans know the answer. You split Jerusalem, the Arab side and the Jewish side, and the Palestinians don't get a right of return for the refugees, except for a few symbolic returns. Because if they could all return to Israel, then Israel wouldn't exist anymore. Everybody knows you can't do that, right? And I know they're holding on to it for negotiation. That makes sense, right? And the Israelis are holding on to Jerusalem for negotiation purposes, I hope. But if they actually want to keep Jerusalem and break that deal that everybody knows is the right deal, well, then you're not going to have a deal because one side doesn't want a deal. So, look, I think it was, even though there are parts of it that I totally disagreed with, and I outlined that for you just now. And even though it wasn't any groundbreaking thing in my opinion, wow, a United States president said we should have the 1967 borders, kind of, right? I still think it was a good thing overall, right? Because currently in America, if you don't live in America, it's hard to understand. What President Obama did today was actually courageous. For him to actually say the obvious was courageous. And he's getting a world of heat over that from the Republicans. And they say, oh, no, 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 how dare you ever question Israel's right-wing government in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they're going much further. So let's go to that next. So, by the way, just as a conclusion to that, again, with the issues that I had with the speech, nonetheless, it was definitely a step in the right direction. And it's mainly because of the context of the United States of America. Within this context, that's about as far as a U.S. president could go, okay? And I wish we had a president that, didn't believe in that context, didn't believe in those boundaries. We don't have that president. But given how President Obama has been in domestic policy, I thought it was pretty much a brave and good speech in the right direction. Will anything come of it? Probably not, because Netanyahu just simply does not want peace. Doesn't want it. He wants, stalemate and then to grab as much land as possible. That's what his actions indicate. So now let's go to the Republican reaction to President Obama's speech on the Middle East. Well, they did not like the talk of the 1967 border, even though everybody else in the world agrees to it. They did not like the talk of ending the permanent occupation. Again, I don't, what is the alternative? To keep the permanent occupation? But apparently the Republicans think so. Now I get a load of all of these reactions. Michelle Bachmann, soon to be running for president of the United States, says, quote, once again, President Obama has betrayed our friend and ally, Israel. Betrayed. Okay, you think, oh, come on, that's outrageous. All he said was make peace, right? She's got to be way out there. Nope. Listen to the rest of them. Here is Mitt Romney, quote, President Obama has thrown Israel under the bus. Here's Rick Santorum. The current administration needs to come to terms with its confused and dangerous foreign policy. Yeah, peace would be so dangerous. Here is Mike Huckabee. I guess this is a moment to realize that the American right in the West Bank settler movement. I'm sorry. That was Andrew Sullivan's reaction to it. Here's Mike Huckabee. President Obama has betrayed Israel and made a grievous mistake by suggesting borders of Israel go back to pre-1967 borders. This is an outrage to peace, sovereignty of Israel, and a stable Middle East. It's an outrage to suggest that what the entire world has basically agreed on is what we should do. How is that in violation of Israel's sovereignty? And what is your answer, Mike Huckabee? Is your answer a permanent war? We're never going to get peace? Or what do you want the Palestinians to do? Say, okay, no, of course, Israel can get whatever they want. We'll give you Jerusalem. We'll give you half the West Bank. I bet if they did that, Netanyahu would still say no. Okay? And Huckabee would say, of course, Israel should have everything it wants. No, but the thing is, these guys, these social conservatives, don't even care about Israel. They don't even care about the right-wing Israeli government getting whatever they want. They don't want peace. People like Mike Huckabee want war because they think that will bring on Armageddon and Jesus Christ will return because they're lunatics, okay? We're having a conversation with these guys. These guys are running for president. And it's not just the guys running for president. Here is Eric Cantor, majority leader for the Republicans in the House. The president's habit of drawing a moral equivalence between the actions of the Palestinians and the Israelis while assessing blame for the conflict is in and of itself harmful to the prospect for peace. How dare you treat them equally? Don't you know the Palestinians are scum? Obviously, we should put Israel on a pedestal and crush the Palestinians. Moral equivalency, how dare you? Now, of course, he'll say, no, the Palestinians are no good terrorists because they've killed Israelis. Well, how about the thousands of Palestinians killed by the Israelis? Oh, well, that's a democratic government. That's just, protecting itself by dropping bombs in the middle of cities. No, you can't have moral equivalence. The Israelis killed 100 times as many people as the Palestinians did? Nope, still no moral equivalence. They're much better than the Palestinians. These people don't want peace. Okay, if you care about peace, you care about the Palestinians, you care about the Israelis, you want them both to have good, independent states that live in peace. That is not what the Republicans want. Marco Rubio, he is a new senator from Florida, says, President's 1967 policy marks a step back in the peace process as the U.S. must not predetermine the outcome of direct negotiations. We are not predetermining it. All he said was, hey, that is a good foundation to start with. And he didn't say, here are the exact borders, here's the land swap that I demand you do, here's what you should do with Jerusalem. He said what Israeli negotiators have said in the past. 1967 borders is our building block. It's the most unoffensive thing I've ever heard. Now, look, those are the elected officials, those are the people running for president. When you turn To the commentators, of course, it gets worse and it gets uglier. Just when you thought, how could it get worse, right? Quinn Hillier writes for the American Spectator. He says, Obama is now ready to advocate the next step of his plan to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. What are you going to do with guys like this? What are you going to do with them? That guy said, I want Israel to live in peace. And he says, oh, he wants to wipe them off the map. He said, if you believe in the 1967 borders, Israel gets to be Israel, as it currently is, without the occupation. How's that wiping them off the map? Here is Jim Hoft from the Right Network. He says, Obama killed Osama. He killed the U.S. economy. Now he wants to kill Israel. All right, here's Ace of Spades. Says he wants Israel to return to its 1967 borders, referring to Obama, thus endorsing the terrorists' key demand without requiring any substantive concessions on their part. I guess that means the Palestinians are all terrorists, of course. And if you negotiate with them and you give them a state, you've given the terrorists what they want. So hence, we can never negotiate with the Palestinians. We can never give them their independent state. And we must have a permanent occupation, which would make these right-wingers incredibly happy. They are sick and grotesque people. Millions of people live under occupation. They do not have the same rights we do, for example, in a democracy. They cannot select their own leaders. They cannot control their own borders. They cannot make their own decisions. They are oppressed. If anyone else did it, it would be outrageous. And if Israel does it, it is outrageous. But all these people say, I don't give a damn. They're all terrorists, and we're never going to give them anything. These people are anti-peace. They are warmongers. They want a perpetual war. I don't know if it's for profit. I don't know if it's ideological. I don't care. They are grotesque, either way you slice it. We have used up so much of our goodwill in the Middle East, even President Obama has, that it's so hard to get anyone to believe us, right? Because remember, President Obama came in and said, I'm going to make Israel listen to us on the settlements. I'm going to make them stop expanding the settlements, because not because he wants to punish Israel, but because he thinks, well, we can't have peace if you keep expanding the settlements and making them larger and larger and making it harder and harder to get a deal, right? And he tried, and Netanyahu said, you're not the boss of me, I'm the boss of you. I will continue to expand those settlements and you'll shut up and like it. And that's basically what happened. So when that happened and Obama said, oh, oops, okay, I guess that's what's going down, and retreated from that position, it was sad. And then the Palestinians got the memo. These guys are not on our side. And when the Palestinians said, hey, we're going to go to the United Nations and resolve this in a legal way through nonviolence, and we shot them down, well, they got the memo. We're not on their side. You know what the popularity of President Obama is in the Palestinian territories right now? 14%. It wasn't always 14%. They were actually incredibly hopeful when President Obama won. There were celebrations because they thought it might be a new beginning. They believed in that change slogan, that you might get moral equivalence, that you might get human beings treated with dignity and respect and with equality. Now, so far they haven't seen it. So look, I told you, I like the speech. I think it's still going in the right direction. And that's why President Obama is saying, hey, we should, the obvious things like end the permanent occupation and get to the 1967 borders, roughly. To say, so that the Palestinians will come back to the negotiating table because they've left because of the settlement issue, right? And so that we can have a deal and we can have peace. But of course, here in the U.S., people roar over it. Now, you hear me doing this defense. Go ahead, watch television. And I did it on television today. And I brought on 3 different people, including the former U.S. ambassador to Israel. And I made every single one of these points on national television. Now, you go ahead, turn on your national television now, see how many other people are saying that. And then see how many other people are saying, oh, outrageous, I can't believe President Obama said this, he's wrong, he should retreat, et cetera, et cetera. You do a tally, you do a count, see how it turns out. Okay. So within that context, it was a brave speech. Come on, man, let's get to a little bit of justice, please. All right, that's this issue when we come back. Is President Obama on the right side? Well, there's a conflict among some of the leading African-American scholars and columnists, et cetera, in the country. We'll We'll talk about that. I feel like that's the kind of music Lars von Trier would listen to. You know what? Something that we have not discussed enough in this show? Cornel West's use of the word brother, which I loved. Like Brother Jackson. Tell me, right? Or Brother Jesus, Sister Anna. I love the way he calls him Brother Barack. Okay. All right. I'll be sprinkling that in. Just fair warning to everybody. Okay? Go ahead, Sister Anna.
Okay. The nation's Roman Catholic bishops have commissioned a study to really hone in on the reasons why priests abuse children within the Catholic Church, right? And I think that's a good step. They want to find out what went wrong. They want to find a way to remedy the situation. Well, the findings of the study are a little controversial, okay? John Jay College of Criminal Justice at the University of New York did the study, and basically they say that being homosexual or celibate did not play a role at all in the abuse within the Catholic Church. So these people, it wasn't because they were gay. It wasn't because they are forced to be celibate. It's just because that they didn't get the proper seminary training, and they didn't get the necessary emotional support to prevent them from doing what they did.
Right. And actually the second part of it was, I thought, far more outrageous. They said the other reason they did it was because of the social norms of the time. It was the 1960s, etc., and Woodstock and all of that. It was a more socially permissive time, and that's why there's never been a dumber study in the history of mankind. Okay? First of all, so you're going to sit a guy down and say, okay, no, seriously? Don't have sex with the kids. Like, that'll do it? Okay, like, oh, he didn't know. All you had to do was tell him. He's like, oh, don't have sex with the okay, why didn't you tell me? Sure, of course I wanted to. That's the proper seminary training, and that would have done the trick? No. You bottled up the guy, and you say, okay, be celibate, okay? And now I'm going to surround you with kids. And he's like, that's why. And blaming Woodstock in the 60s, how stupid are you? First of all, this kind of abuse has been going on forever.
Since the 50s.
Since the 50s, since the 20s, since the 1800s, since the 1300s. Okay? You think that priests or any authority figures abusing young kids in their charge happened because of the 1960s? You'd have to be painfully stupid to believe that. And then to write that up, like from John Jay College, for that, and they'll be like, oh, I got a great idea. And then they write that up, and they're like, this is our report. You know they got paid $1.8 million for the report?
I know, that's incredible. Another thing that's incredible is that they didn't consider the priests pedophiles, okay? And that's because of their definition of what a pedophile is. I'm quoting the study. It says, the majority of victims were pubescent or post-pubescent. Thus, they wrote, it is inaccurate to refer to the abusers as pedophile priests.
Yeah, of course, because the only way you could be a pedophile is if you apparently slept with a fetus. Okay, what the hell kind of definition is that? That's the craziest definition I ever heard. But the overall point is one we always drive at the Young Turks. It's all about the money, Lebowski. Okay, somebody pays you $1.8 million to do a report, and they want you to say that they weren't pedophiles and that it wasn't their fault. It was the liberals' fault for having the Woodstock in the 60s and for not having the proper training or whatever. You're going to get that report. It doesn't matter if it's a respected college or whatever. You pay $1.8 million and you will get some professor or anyone in the world to write whatever you want. And that is exactly what they got, and that's what this report was all about. But I mean, at this point, it was so comical, I think they wasted their money because all it got them was more negative press.
Yeah, absolutely. And, everyone is criticizing this report. No one is taking it seriously. And, it's really offensive to the victims groups because they're thinking, okay, great, they're going to commission the study. They want to remedy this issue. They want to find a way to prevent it from happening in the future. And then it was a massive letdown for them. And it's like, really? You're gonna put this garbage in front of us and tell us that this is the reason why they abused us?
Look, it's the power of money is amazing. If the victim groups had paid anyone to come up with a report for $1.8 million, I guarantee you the report would have said it is all the fault of the Catholic Church for not exercising the proper authority, for not controlling those people, for letting them fester and continue to abuse more kids, etc. It depends on who's paying.
Yeah,
You think John Jay College didn't somehow select the one conservative guy, who was going to give them exactly what they got, what the Catholic Church paid for, right? Of course, somehow money finds a way. And that's what happened here.
And another thing, how come the study didn't mention the problem of bishops covering it up? Why are bishops covering it up? That's a huge issue. That's the reason why it was able to happen for such a long time, and no one was able to draw attention to it till now, because it's been happening for decades, and there was a huge cover-up.
No, the 1960s part drives me crazy, because that shows you that the person who wrote it is a total jackass. Like, do you think it only happened in the 60s and in that stretch of time? He's got some goofy graph in there. Look, we find out the reporting on it based on later revelations. Could that affect how many, the prevalence of it at different time periods? Of course, it's about the reporting. You think just because they didn't report it in the 1920s, it didn't happen? Mm-hmm. Okay. You remember the movie that you saw about the story in Ireland and how they abused the kids there?
Yeah, the Magdalene sisters.
Right. And what time period was that?
I don't remember which time period it was, to be honest.
I mean, look, it doesn't matter. Who cares about the movies? I can cite you a million examples of abuse throughout history. It's comical to say that it only happened in that time period. You'd have to be so incredibly biased or so incredibly stupid to say that.
By the way, you guys have to check out the Magdalene sisters. It's based on a true story of 3 little girls who grew up in Ireland in the Catholic. They grew up in like a Catholic school, but it was almost like a boarding school. And it just makes you sick to your stomach.
You have to check it out. It makes you sick to your stomach.
No, but it's a really good movie. I mean, it does make you sick to your stomach, but it's one of those movies where you really learn something and you learn about the lives of these 3 girls.
We're thinking of starting a progressive movie club. Maybe we'll put that in the progressive movie club.
See?
We'll see. Anyway, Netflix.com/TYT gets you a free month, but I'm not saying it.
We're shameless.
Okay.
Also, check out TYT University at youtube.com.
Okay, so please move on. Please move on.
All right. We've been doing the story of Botox Mom. Now we're getting more information into this story. Botox Mom, a.k.a. Carrie Campbell, a.k.a. her real name is Sheena Upton. It turns out that now that she had her 8-year-old daughter taken away, she's telling police officials in a sworn deposition that The Sun, which is a UK publication, forced her to make up that story for $200.
Well, they didn't force her to do anything. They just paid her $200.
All right, they paid her $200.
And so she was willing to, make up these outrageous lies about herself and about her 8-year-old daughter for $200. So even if she's telling the truth, it doesn't gain a lot of sympathy, except she's now desperate to get her kid back because her kid got taken away.
Right.
So I don't know who to believe here.
It's a really interesting question, and I have no real facts, okay? Of course, The Sun is denying this. ABC News, which Sheena Upton also accused of paying her for their scoop.
Because she went and did an interview with her child on ABC News, which then got her in a whole new world of trouble.
Right, exactly. ABC News denies that they paid her. They say that they have a policy against paying the people that they interview, yada, yada, yada. Now, I went back and I looked at the ABC news story on this, and I looked closely because I remember the first time that we saw it, there was something that really stood out to me. In the original article written by The Sun, there were all these quotes from the 8-year-old girl. And the 8-year-old girl would say things like, I wake up every morning and look in the mirror and I see the wrinkles and I want to get Botox. I'm paraphrasing, but she says something of that nature. Anyway, and then during the ABC interview, it seemed like she didn't really know what to say. She seemed confused, and the mother was like feeding her lines. Now, I have a video clip that shows you what I'm talking about, okay? So pay close attention.
Can you show me where you do it? Can you point on your face?
Yeah.
Botox injections administered by your mother. Can you show me where you do it? Can you point on your face?
Yeah. Sometimes I do it right here.
A little bit of. And what do you do it for?
I don't know.
Well, do you do it because you see wrinkles, or?
Oh yeah. I see like wrinkles and it just like I just like don't like think wrinkles are nice for little girls.
Come on.
No, you nailed it. That's some good eye, as they say in baseball. No, 2 things there that are totally conclusive. Well, one, she says around here, and the mom says a little off. Like, oh, you're a little off. Get it higher up, because we practice. Remember, we get the things. here. And then she's like, I don't know. And then when she says wrinkles, she's like, oh yeah, like she was supposed to remember.
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Right? So no question. That girl is trained up, which then leads me to believe the mom's new story, right? And leads me to discount all the stories from the son. And you know what? Now it's beginning to make sense. Because remember, we've been talking about on this show, you get all these stories out of the UK that are amazing and ridiculous and unbelievable, right? Maybe that's because they're not really believable.
Right.
That they're paying people for these outrageous stories so that they can sell more papers.
Right.
Okay? And would that be unscrupulous? Of course. Has that ever happened before? Of course. I'm not saying the Sun's doing it, but it looks like that's an interesting case to be made here. And as far as ABC, look, those networks have a way of getting around that stuff. They say, no, we didn't pay her for the interview, but we did pay her for the rights to show some of the pictures. The rights to show some of the pictures. Come on, that's it.
They claim that they did not pay the woman, the mother, money to show the pictures. They claim that they paid a UK news agency that took the photos, and they got the photos from them.
Could
and
be
none
true.
of the money went to Sheena Upton.
Could be true. I don't know. Maybe, look, Sheena Upton, obviously at this point, is a very shady character, right? And you can't take what she says at face value, because she definitely lied at one point, either earlier or now, right? And she's got a huge motivation to lie now to keep her kid, right? At the same time, that kid was definitely coached up, as you said. And the answer could be somewhere in the middle. Maybe the Sun paid her, but ABC News didn't. But she thought she'd go do the ABC News thing to get, more fame or more money somehow, etc. But one thing is for sure, the whole thing is super shady.
Right.
All right.
You know, and that's the thing about the media right now, okay? Because you don't know where to go to get actual factual reporting, okay? Because, you see ABC News do it, and ABC News is reputable. You think, okay, if ABC News is interviewing this woman, they must have done research up and down. They know that this woman isn't lying. But it turns out that the whole story is a hoax. And it amazes me. Oprah got lied to.
Can you believe that? Oprah got lied to. What is this world coming to?
No, Oprah had
If
a
we
guest
can't
on.
trust Oprah, what could happen? All right, yes.
I don't remember the nature of the guest or what he was talking about, but I remember Oprah had a guest on the show who completely made this entire story up.
Jonathan Franzen, right? Is that? Am I getting the name wrong? Yeah, the guy who wrote the book. The book was lying. She was
Right.
outraged, and and la la la. And I thought there was a lot of drama for no reason. The guy's a writer, and so he wrote a book that wasn't true and said it was true. At least he wrote an interesting book that everybody read. Change it from nonfiction to fiction, and you're there. Just take out the non part.
Okay.
I thought everybody got all worked up for nothing on that one, but anyway.
All right, 1/3 of students at Berlin University are willing to consider sex work to pay for their tuitions.
Wow, don't it?
That's a huge number, 1/3.
Wow.
Whoa.
Okay. In fact,
She's a bad, bad girl.
apparently there's a lot of bad girls at Berlin University. Makes me want to visit Berlin. No, just playing. Bring it down. Okay. Look, I know they got to pay their bills. That's the
Right.
main reason, right, that they say it. But 1/3 is a gigantic number.
1/3 is a gigantic number. And look, you could look at this story in two different ways. In one way, you could think, oh, God, it's so sad. Tuition is so expensive that people are willing to do that. But on the other hand, now you're seeing this huge social change, right, where people are looking at sex work as something that is no longer taboo. They're looking at it as something that is maybe a smart move if you want to make money and make money fast. And if people's mindsets are starting to change in regard to this, maybe we could move closer to regulating the sex industry in a way that's safer for prostitutes.
I hear you, but in Berlin it is legal. Okay.
In Berlin, it's completely legal?
Yeah. So now,
Interesting.
everybody's got different rules and stuff, but it's generally legal. Okay, so now I agree with you though, and I think that this is a phenomenon that's happening actually all across the world. I think it's happening here in the U.S. Germany apparently is a little further out than others. Paris is a high number too for a number of students willing to engage in that, but Berlin is the highest, at least among the work that they did here in this story. But I'm with Anna. I really think that people have gotten to the point where they think, what's the difference? I have sex anyway. I get to have sex for some money. I think a lot of the social stigma is lost, and I think this is a rare case where the conservatives are a little right. Like, and I'm not saying that I'm against it, and I think, all right, maybe, okay, so that's voluntary. Maybe that's the situation we're in, and then people think that that's fine, and I'm not judging them at all. But at the same time, I think the fact that society has changed has influenced that greatly.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. And, you know, sex work doesn't just include prostitution. It also includes, you know, diddling yourself in front of a camera for someone else. I don't know, people are into that.
She's a bad, bad girl.
No, like, apparently they count that, like, stripping and then, like, internet chat room sex or something that you get paid for, phone sex. Like, okay, now when you include all that, when you include strippers, then the 30% becomes a little bit more reasonable.
And when you include phone sex, like, what's phone sex? If you're going to get paid good money to do phone sex, there's nothing wrong with that.
See, this is how society loses its bearings.
Look, if I was in a tough situation and I needed to make money and phone sex was the way I needed to do it, sure, I'll talk dirty over the phone. Fine.
I think a lot of people feel that way, and I think that's why things are broken down. But look, you shouldn't. Okay, la la la, da da da.
Phone sex is legal.
No, I got you.
Right.
I'm just saying it's not a good idea. You know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, having said that, I'm in a really bad spot, right? And they say, all right, Uger, here's the situation. Okay, I'm going to give you $10,000, okay? And you're going to tell this girl, okay? Oh, screw it. You're going to tell this guy that he needs to spank himself, okay? So I said, okay, oh, you've been a bad, bad boy. Jesus and Lord mercy. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, you sick son of a bitch.
What if you're at least, you know, what you'd have to go with? What if the clientele happens to be gay men? Would you have to go that direction too? You okay with that?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're saying that?
Yeah. I think you missed what I
I thought you
was
were going with
saying.
women only.
But Cenk has to make it more believable. You can't be like, oh, yeah, spank yourself. That guy would be so upset that he's spending $5 a minute to talk to you.
All right, what's your price, Jackson? There's got to be a price.
To do phone sex?
Yeah. For guys.
Oh, for guys.
Oh, for women, what? It's like $1 an hour. But it's for free. Gratis. Okay.
And I'm trying to get through school.
Yeah. You're in a bad spot. You need the money.
We're talking about per hour. You gotta give me, you know.
No. I'm saying, like, you got to do it for a week. You got to get on there and you got to put your time in 5 hours a day. You do this and then you do that. But after the week, I'm going to give you this sum of money.
You gotta give me 5 figures after a week, man.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I put it at 10,000. So you're looking at 5,000. You're looking at no, 5 figures, 10,000.
Totally.
Yeah.
5 figures.
Yeah. So do I still have it? I don't know where it is. Let me try to guess where it is here.
Yesterday was
No.
What would Jesus do?
I missed that sound clip.
Well, I'm right there with you guys. It'd have to be probably 5 figures, and I'd put in work.
The flip side is, Jesus, if you do it for $5,000 a week and you could do it the whole year, Jesus and Lord mercy, we're talking about $250,000. We're talking $250,000 a year.
I would have a member service too, like the Young Turks has.
So it's an extra layer of verbal spanking.
Oh yeah.
Okay. By the way, we do not provide that for members. We provide a lot. We do not provide that. Okay, that story went places.
Yes. We should take a break. When we come back, we have a story about the planking craze and how it's killing people.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. And I will tell you what's actually coming up for members in the postgame today. All right, come right back.